This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm April Borkman of the Charleston Teen and Family Empowerr program, and welcome to our first virtual education panel discussion. We'll be delivering important sexual risk prevention information for youth and young adults on a weekly or bi-weekly or semi-weekly basis for the foreseeable future. And we'll be doing this through videos and panel discussions. Today, our first panel discussion, we're going to talk about goals and planning for the future. And we're also going to talk about how that connects to the importance of prevention of STIs, HIV, and unplanned pregnancy. Some of you may have watched our educational lead-up videos this week on our social media. And if you have watched those, then you've met some of our panelists already. But I'll go ahead and introduce all of them to you. First, we have our very own Tanel Jones, licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed addiction counselor, and our Empowerr health educator. So Tanel, there she is. And then we also have Patrice Witherspoon, who's a health educator for the YWCA Greater Charleston. We have Brittany Green, who is the follow-up victim advocate for People Against Rape. And we have Bradley Burris, the Prevention and Education Coordinator at People Against Rape. And we have Rajon Lewis, Executive Director of Lowcountry Youth Services. Thank you guys for being here. And we'll go ahead and get started on the discussion. We're going to start with Rajon first. So Rajon, can you tell us why it's important for young people to have a plan for the future?
All right, so thank you so much, April, for inviting me to this. I'm really excited about this event. So like she said, my name is Rajon Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of Lowcountry Youth Services. And one thing that we do that we specialize with is working with young people, especially young men who are trying to aspire to greater things in life. One of the first things that we talk to them about is identifying your goals. Now, why is it important to have goals? It's important to have goals because of the fact that your goals really are the finish line to the place that you want to go. Like anything else in life, you're going to decide before you even leave your house in the morning, you decide, okay, I'm going to go to this place. I'm going to go to Walmart. I'm going to go to school, or I'm going to go on a long trip. Well, you wouldn't plan for all those things the exact same way. If you're going to Walmart, you probably wouldn't take your school books. If you're going to school, you probably would not be as sure to make sure you bring certain things. And if you're going on a long trip, you want to make sure you pack extra clothes. You want to make sure you have food for the trip. You need to know how you're going to get there. And what goals actually does, it gives you that end game so that you know what needs to happen in the middle. That's why goals are so important. So your goals may be to go to have a certain career. So to have a certain career, it may require a certain level of education. It may require you to get a certain amount of grades. Those are all things that are really important when you're talking about setting and achieving your goals. But understand that without having the goals, imagine if you just left home in the morning and said, okay, I'm just going to go anywhere. You would end up just on a never-ending journey, just walking or driving until you run out of gas in whatever place. And that probably wouldn't have been the place that you wanted to be in. But if you say, I want to go to this specific place, you're more assured to get there. So that's why goals are very important.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you're saying setting goals is important because like you said, it gives you an end game. It gives you something to shoot for. It gives you a purpose, right?
Yes. Yes.
And a reason for doing things a certain way.
Yes, absolutely.
Do any of you, Patrice or Brittany or Tanel, Bradley, have anything else to add to that? Okay. Thank you, Rajon. So Tanel, I'm going to go to you now. What is the difference when we're talking about goals? We often talk about values as well. So what I want you to tell us is what's the difference between values and goals, and why do you need to consider both of those things?
Okay, values really are like a direction. So if you think about a map and you have north, south, east, west, and you say, I'm going to go north until I can't go north anymore, you never will really be able to, so you can't accomplish values. So values really just says, this is who I want to be in all areas of my life. So if you say, as a child, what's most important to me? As a sibling, what's most important to me? If I'm an employee, what kind of values do I want to what kind of values I want to have. It's really just saying this is who I am and this is what I stand for. Goals is different because goals you set to accomplish those things. So, for example, if you say, you know what, trust is a value that I have. How do I set a goal to be more trustworthy or to be able to trust others? A simple goal might be, that I'm honest every time I say something to somebody. So that's the way to build trust. So those are kind of the differences. Like values are like just kind of, is kind of, again, trying to think about kids is, it's like, again, you can't really see it, but you just are it. You are this who you are. It's what's important to you. And then the goals are the actual steps that you take to do things throughout your life. And so that's kind of the difference. And so I would encourage people, before you set goals, figure out again, like, what's this life about? Like at the end of the day, if you had to write a book about who you want to, what you want your life to be about, that's the values piece of it. So what do you want your story to be? Figuring that out, I think is going to be very, very helpful to setting goals. Makes setting goals actually easier.
Yeah, so goals are like the end game. These are the things I want to accomplish in my life. And then values are the way you go about approaching those goals and accomplishing those goals, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think something to add to that is that values can be a huge part of your why in terms of the goals that you're setting for yourself. So like as a health educator, it's always been important to me that like my community is healthy. I value that in my community. So I became that to contribute to that. So
Excellent.
each have
Yeah,
your
right. Great. Anybody have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I would add to that, just looking at, goals and values, like I would look at like goals and values like on a football field if you play football. So your goal is you want to get a touchdown, but the values are really your sidelines that keep you, they let you know your boundaries. These are the things that I'm not willing to do in order to achieve my goals. If my goal is to be a millionaire, well, maybe one of my values is, well, I care about my community, so I'm not going to sell drugs to become a millionaire. I'm not gonna, sell my body as a prostitute to make money. So these are things, as far as values, these are definitely things that you can use as your sidelines to guide you towards your goal. So I think it's very important to identify the things that you care about the most when considering your end game goals.
I really like that comparison. That was awesome. Really good, clear way to describe it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so when we're talking about goals and values and end game and planning for the future, it's important that we map those things out so that we can have a visualization of that and have that in our forefront of our mind all the time so that we're making good decisions to get to those goals. So Brittany, tell us why it's important to map out goals like you did in your video, in your lead up video to today's discussion.
Yeah, so mapping is super important as far as kind of using the goals and the values that you have to create a concrete plan for what you want to do. A lot of times you have this huge goal in mind, but you don't know how to get there. And so that's where this mapping comes into play, because you're going to see, how do I get to where I need to go? If I decide I want to go into a career that involves, a 4-year college, what do I need to start doing in 9th grade in order to get there? What are those concrete steps? And then being able to put it in a medium where you can visualize it, see it, so that if you're, having to make a specific kind of decision and you're not sure, if you want to make this decision to go left or to go right, and you can employ your values and your goals and your plan in order to go in the right direction, so that it just kind of makes it easier for you to stay on track. And even when things throw you off track, you're able to, get yourself back on track to get to the goal that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, super important. It's like you guys out there who are listening and watching may have heard of people talk about vision board. So put it on your vision board, and that's kind of what we're getting at here. And so I'm going to move to Patrice now, because Patrice, you actually did that in your video. You created a vision board. So explain to us what it might look like to literally map out goals and put it on a vision board.
Well, you start with your values and your why and what's important to you, and that helps you kind of formulate what your goals are. And the mapping and the visualizing is important, like she was saying, because it gives you kind of a direction and checkpoints to see where you are. So it, like I did in the video, I just went as simple as like assessing what your goals are, what you already have that'll help you get you there, and then what you need. And you just work on that and maybe break those steps down to smaller steps along the way, but doing everything that you can to get those things that you need to reach that ultimate goal. It's also, I think, important to map out and literally write down or make some sort of visualization because it's a great evaluation tool. Whether it's throughout the process or when you have gotten to a certain point and you look back, things that you did that got you here for your next goal, you might be able to expedite that process a little more. Or you can evaluate like, this was really stressful, me doing this part, trying to reach this goal. Next time, I think I figured out a way to do this better. Just to like go back and evaluate your process of reaching your goals is important as well. So that's why it's important to map it out, to write it down, to put something very tangible in front of you that you can see. um, I don't know. Everybody believes in everything about the universe, but I am a firm believer of writing things down, saying things, visualizing and thinking it and putting it out into the universe, and that's what comes back. So that's why it's important.
So it's important. Yeah, I think the idea of mapping it out, the reason I like it is because if you think about an end goal, okay, I want to be, like Rajan said, I want to be a millionaire one day. I would love to be a millionaire one day myself. Um, how do you get to that point? It can seem really, really overwhelming when you think about, or what are all the things that I need to do to get to that point, and mapping it out, like you said, Patrice, really breaks it down into like tangible steps. You're not going to get there overnight. So what can I do today that will set me on the path to get to where I want to be later? And that becomes really, really important when we're talking about behaviors that we are participating in now and how that's going to affect us and getting to our end goal. And we'll talk, I guess, more about that in a few minutes, I think. Does anybody else have anything else to add to that?
I would like to say, I think sometimes people don't think that they can set goals. And so one of the things, I'm going to give a really good example. It may or may not be appropriate, but I'm going to shoot for it. So when I used to work with women who were in recovery, and we would talk about goal setting, and they're like, I don't know how to set goals. I don't know how to set goals. And these women were like, addicted to cocaine and other drugs. So I was like, you already are a really good goal setter. And they're like, what are you talking about? So I would say, listen, your goal when you woke up was to get high, right? They're like, yeah. So you put things in motion to get high. That's all goal setting is. You called your dealer, you went out and whatever it is you had to do, you accomplished that. So they didn't really know that they had that skill, and they were like, oh, well, yeah. A goal is just to have a thought. So for some young people, maybe you want to get the newest Jordans coming out. That's your goal. Then you say, okay, now I have to figure out how I'm going to get this money from my parents. So you may decide to do chores. You may just go ask. If you ask first, that don't work, you may go try your other parent. So you already have it in you to set goals. And so don't allow that thought that I can't set a goal to get in your head, because you really can.
That's really good. That's
Mhm.
a really good way to put that. I would even add to it. I was thinking about when she was saying, dang, I lost my thought. She was saying about, no, because she had a really good point about mapping thoughts become things. The things that you think about, you bring about, right? So I watched a video called The Secret. You probably have seen it. If you haven't seen it, it's a pretty good thing to watch. Just about goal setting and about visualizing things. And it's pretty much the secret is the things that thoughts become things, right? Thoughts become things. So once I set this thing in my mind that it's something that I want to do or something that I want to achieve, I'm going to naturally start gravitating towards it because of the fact that's the thing that I think about. I have several things in my life that I want to have happen. So every day I wake up and I'm like, how do I make this happen? And it can be something really small. But like Janelle said, you can definitely visualize this big goal and break it down into these baby steps. And you don't have to wait. So if I want to be a doctor, one thing I do with my kids, my personal children, as well as kids that I mentor, is we talk about where you want to be in 20 years. Like, where do you, like, if you could do anything and not have to do anything else, what would that thing be? What would that thing be? And they'll say, okay, well, I want to be a lawyer. All right, cool. So you're a lawyer right now, you're 12 years old. What can I do right now at 12 years old that's going to make me a lawyer in 20 years? Well, I guess if I'm 12, I could probably find a lawyer who would talk to me about being a lawyer, right? So I can talk to this person while I'm 12 years old, and then they can start telling me about the things that they have to do, and then I can start learning those things. If I want to be a doctor, I can start volunteering at the VA. My daughter told me she wanted to be a doctor. So every summer she would go to the VA and she'd volunteer at the VA. And she got experience on the job at 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. And now she's looking at going to college, and she can write all those things on her resume. All that stuff helps her when it comes to goal setting and goal achieving. So that's why I wanted to say, is like, you don't have to wait until you're 20 years old to start setting your goals. You can set a goal at 12. You can set a goal at 8.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. And I think this is a good point to bring Bradley in because I think a lot of times Bradley's our youngest panelist, so we're going to ask her some questions about what I think a lot of times young people might find it, like I said, overwhelming, and they might have a difficulty seeing the forest for the trees, because they might be seeing all these barriers that are in their way to even getting to the point where they can set goals. So Bradley, being the youngest one in the group, what do you think some of the barriers are for young people in goal setting and goal reaching?
Yeah.
And how can we help them?
And I think this is such an important question. And, we've been touching on the answers, but all of our barriers are unique to us as individuals and our experience. And I think, what Rajan was saying about having that roadmap in place, we get so discouraged as kids when we think about these big ideas, right? Like being a lawyer, being a doctor, it's this concept to us. And it's important that we have the language in order to execute what we want. So, for example, just like Rajan was saying, if I want to be in nonprofit life, I want to be a vet tech, what do I need to do to get there? And that's having the connections and the resources to people who can help me get there. That's having, okay, is there a community partner who connect me with someone in nonprofit life? Can I look at local nonprofits around me who are doing the work that I dream of doing? So I think as a kid, it's really important that we connect with those people and reach out. I think another thing is just barriers in general. Do I have access to a computer to look up that stuff? Do I have time? Because as a kid, there's this misconception that, we're just kids. We have time to do things. And that's honestly not the case for so many of us. What additional support do I need from family, friends, the community as a whole to achieve my dreams? And, the last thing that I think is a huge misconception is that you can change your mind. As kids, we
Absolutely
have this initial thing, right? Someone asks, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your future? And I mean, for me, I said a lawyer, right? Because it just sounded like this great idea that people supported. They were like, that's awesome. But as I grew up, I realized that's not my passion. My passion is I want to help other people who have been through something that I can relate to. And I was discouraged because I changed my mind. And we often don't support people changing their mind. Our opinions, our values, our roadmap will change consistently throughout our lives. And so I think it's just important that, we're validating right now, it is okay to change your mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think wow, that's a really good point. And if you don't mind, like, I want to piggyback on that, because even when I was talking to my daughter, and she said, I want to be this thing, right? I never try to force. I think it's especially for the parents who are watching this, it's important that you don't try to force kids into the box that you want them to be in. Give them the latitude to say, this is something that I'm interested in. This is something that I care about, even if it's something that you don't think is very important, right? I'll give you an example. Being a YouTuber, right? A lot of kids right now, their goal is to be a YouTuber. That's what they want to do. Well, instead of saying, hey kid, there's a billion YouTubers, you'll just be one of them and you can't make it. Instead, what you could say is, okay, cool. Well, let's set up a YouTube channel. Let's set up a YouTube channel and let's see you build those skills that will make you a good YouTuber. YouTuber. Because while they're doing that, they're still learning goal setting. They're still practicing those skills. They're still a lawyer. You know, if you decided you want to be a lawyer at 12, well, I meet this lawyer and I realize I don't really want to be a lawyer. Guess what, though? I learned something in those discussions with that lawyer. I learned something that's going to help me on my roadmap. So I definitely agree, Bradley. That was a great point about being able to change your mind. I'm 38 years old and I've changed my mind like 5 times on the careers that I'm going to have. So it's not.
And it's all connected. Like you said, it's all this connected plan that I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I cared about my community. I volunteered. I met PAR. I ended up getting a job there. And I met individuals who encouraged me to go to higher education. It's all this huge plan in place. And, you know, we're achieving goals every single day. And it's just important to remember that it will continue to fluctuate our entire lives. Like you said, you know, we're never done becoming a better version of ourselves.
Absolutely.
Love it. Yes. I'm so glad you guys said those things. Because exactly, Tina. Because I think it, you know, little things every day pop up for all of us that, you know, could easily discourage us from reaching our goals too if we let them. So I'm going to throw a question out to the group, and whoever wants to answer can answer. But you know, what advice would you have for a teen or a young person who might make a mistake or doesn't reach a goal? You know, how can they get back on track or prevent from getting discouraged? What kinds of things should they remember? What should they be doing?
Well, I'd start with be kind to yourself because it's gonna happen. Setbacks happen. We make decisions that we turn around and realize probably weren't the best. It happens, and it happens well into your adulthood. So, and then the second thing is, like I was saying about how writing things down and mapping things out can serve as a good evaluation tool. Reflection is important. Reflecting on the experience where you felt set you back, and should you encounter something like that again, you know what to do differently. And it also brings about more self-awareness on your journey, and that is a tool that will carry you through life in several ways. But yeah, I think it's reflecting and actually trying to learn from those experiences rather than beating yourself up about it or letting other outside influences make you feel like you are stuck there forever. Like you're the sum total of all of your decisions. And so your last bad decision does not have to be the end all be all.
Yeah. I mean, just to chime in there, I don't know who said it, but it was one of my favorite things. I don't lose, I learn. So like when you come into situations like you're gonna have in your life, especially if you're young, my young people watching this, understand this. You are going to fail. It's going to happen, right? Every single person on this panel has failed at something. Many of us have failed. If God allows you to live long enough, you're gonna fail many, many times. But the key to it is that when you fail, that you learn the lessons that come with it. What was my role in that situation that caused the failure? Not look for somebody to blame. Because no matter what you think the perfect role you may have played in a situation, there's something in that situation that you could improve yourself on, even if it was just to make sure that you didn't take certain steps to put yourself in a certain situation. So like when those things happen, learn from them. I'll give you an example. I was my senior year of high school, I had never failed a grade. I got to my senior year in high school and I got senioritis in the worst way. Some stuff was going on at home. I got distracted and I ended up failing the 12th grade. I failed the 12th grade. I went on 2 senior trips. I failed in 12th grade. But you know, instead of feeling like I remember I had a teacher, Mr. Jessen. Mr. Jessen said, Rajan, you can take this one of 2 ways. You can laugh about it or you can cry about it. But you gotta go through it again. You gotta finish it. So I went back to school the following year. Was I a subject of ridicule? Absolutely. Did it hurt my feelings when people would make fun of me? Absolutely. Did I get my high school diploma? Absolutely. And through that, I learned that I can do anything, even when obstacles arise. Even when I don't take the steps, when I know it's my fault, I can still improve it. So just learn from your mistakes. That's the biggest thing I can tell you if your biggest fear is failure.
Yep. And I think another point that you mentioned, Rajan, was it's okay to feel that disappointment. Like it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry about that failure or that mistake, but use that as your fuel to keep going forward and pushing towards the things that you value the most.
Absolutely.
And the only thing I would add to that is don't allow yourself to just feel labeled. And what I mean by that is I was kind of the opposite in high school. I just didn't really apply myself. And I think it's because I was more concerned with like working. I was concerned with other things than my education at the time. And I labeled myself as being someone who just wasn't very smart, right? I allowed myself to sit in that label and just go ahead and set that roadmap for myself. It was not a positive roadmap, it was a negative one. And then you have to learn from that and realize that's not true. I am in charge of my own decisions and I can make the choice to do something different. And then something different happened. And so I just, I want to put that there because I think we really do just label ourselves and just conform to that box we were talking about.
Yeah, and that can prevent us from reaching our goals.
Yeah.
If we let that happen, if we just sit there in that negative space.
Yep.
So I'm gonna throw another question out to the group. I have two final questions for the group, and then we'll wrap up. But for youth and young people who don't really know where to begin in making connections to reach their goals, maybe they don't have a person at home that can help them with that, or they don't know who to identify in their community who can help them with that. What advice would you give them?
Mentors.
Yeah.
Identify a mentor in your life. Now, so you may ask yourself, what's a mentor? A mentor is not necessarily something you have to join a program to get. You can identify mentors all around you, whether it be at your school, whether it be at your church, within your community. Maybe it's your next door neighbor who you see cutting the grass and you just want to have a conversation with them. Someone at your local hospital, somebody who works in a specific career field that you want to have. Identify somebody in your surroundings who you can talk to and can lead you in the right direction. I think that sometimes we under value our parents in that regard. Our parents have a wealth of knowledge of life experience that they've lived. Even if you think your parent has the worst luck in the world and y'all live in terrible situations, sit down and ask your parents. Ask them, hey mom, if you could have done anything differently growing up, what would that have been? Did you have struggles in school? A lot of times we don't talk to our parents about things that would allow us to learn from the mistakes that they made. Because the one thing that I know as a parent is I do not want my kids to duplicate any of the mistakes that I made on my way up. So any way I can help, I possibly can. But if you don't have that, if you live in a group home, or if you are not in a situation where you have a good relationship with your parents, identify someone else. There are so many people who want nothing more than to see you succeed. And if that means to have a conversation with you, to go to lunch with you, to have a quarterly check-in, to do a text message group, or whatever it takes. There's so many people. My organization, Lowcountry Youth Services, is always looking for, especially young men. We don't have anything specially designed for young ladies yet, but we're working on that. But for young men, if you are a young man who's in search of a mentor and you have nobody, please go to www.lowcountryyouth.org, and we'd love to pair you up with a mentor and get you started.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rajan. Yeah, and I'd like to point out too, to young people who might be watching who don't know where to go. There's a teacher at school that you like. There's at least one, right? Or a coach, or a counselor, or a guidance counselor, and they would love nothing more than to talk to you about these things and to help get you on track. Or a pastor at a church. I think someone mentioned that, or the next door neighbor, right? So think about that. Think about there's somebody out there in your life that you can at least go to and say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I want to do with my life. Can you help me navigate this? Point me in the right direction. They have connections, right? They can connect you to somebody else who might be your mentor. So thank you.
I want to add, I think also if you feel like there's no one near you, if nothing else, I've learned in this world that, let's say we'll use the great Kobe Bryant, like even though people didn't know him, he was a mentor. He had a legacy. So maybe if it's something that you want to do or somebody that you find to be kind of relevant to your cause, just go read more about that person. Maybe you'll learn about how they made mistakes, how they set goals, and what you can pick from them. So I would say reading, like go to the library, get biographies of people, famous or not so famous. As much information as you can to help you, because that really will benefit you as well.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you want to feel like 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 if looking at the lives of other people definitely give you that perspective about failure. I watch documentaries all the time, and like that's one thing that I get out of documentaries. Like so many great people have failed so many times, and so that's a great point. Identifying someone that you admire, you know, in the larger scope of the world is definitely a great way to identify those kind of values and goals.
Yes. Again, another thing that helps well into adulthood. Like I recognize I'm entering a new phase of like my life right now, and I just read a Elaine Walter Roth's book, and I was like, oh my God, what are these parallels? Thank you, I need this, and I'm almost 30. Read, watch documentaries, kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. Um, so last question for the group. And this is why Empowerr exists. Our whole purpose, the Empowerr program, is to prevent HIV and STIs and unplanned pregnancy. So who wants to take a stab at explaining to those watching how goal setting and future planning and finding mentors, how that relates to preventing HIV and STIs and unplanned pregnancy? Why is it important to sexual health?
Well, because a lot of your mentors, like we just said, they have had their own tippy topsy turvy journey to where they are, and they've made some mistakes, they've failed a few times. And when it comes to your sexual and reproductive health, maybe they didn't ever fail in that area, so they can teach you how not to do that, or maybe they did, and they can definitely teach you how not to do what they did. And also, I think specifically for unintended or unplanned pregnancy, mentors are incredibly important because one, they can help build your village should you find yourself in that situation and you are a new parent and you didn't expect to be at a certain age. Or again, they could have already gone through that experience and they can give you hope that you won't feel stagnant. Maybe you're in school and you have to drop out for the semester or something, but they can give you hope that you can get back in the game, and you can get that degree and another one and another one. So I think that that's why it's important to still have mentors and how they can help you in that way and show you how to avoid certain obstacles there. Um, and it's all about having a plan and kind of sticking to it. Like I mentioned, the reproductive life plan at the end of my video, which we can get into later, but it's about having a plan and sticking to it and not letting those setbacks get you.
I
Right, and
think
participating
oh,
in some risky behaviors can nothing can give you a setback faster than to engaging in risky behaviors and not doing things to protect yourself on the outset of that. And so that's another important reason for having that goal plan and having a vision board that you can look at every day to remind you that these are my goals, this is where I want to be, so I'm not going to do these other things right now.
I think also it's important. So when I was younger, AIDS, HIV/AIDS, I think I don't know if it was fairly new, but I just remember people saying, like people in my age group, say, if I ever got AIDS, I'm never gonna get you. It's like the end of the world, or my life is over. I'm gonna it's kind of done. And that's so. If you set goals now and you have an incident where you do get an STI or a contract HIV, it just means you just get the treatment. Like I know some people used to like say, I'm not gonna get treated. What's the point? Well, if you have goals and you know that there are treatments available, and you go and you take care of yourself and you get the help that you need, whether it's talking to somebody, like I said, taking the medication that you need to take, whether it's permanent medication or just medication to cure if the STD can be cured. So it's just important to set goals and recognize that even if you do make a mistake where in regards to your sexual health or engaging in risky sexual behaviors, that you can do something about it. So
Yeah, and another aspect of, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
and just another thing, and tying in the mentorship, aspect of this conversation when you talk about sexual reproductive health. The biggest part of having a mentor is the fact that you build a relationship with someone. When you have a relationship with someone, you're more willing to talk to them. You're more willing to open up to them. That's my favorite thing about having mentees is I have like 30 or 40 kids that are willing to open up to me, and they share things with me that I know they haven't shared with their parents. And then we can have a discussion about, those things in a way that maybe they won't talk to their parents about it sometimes. Mentors also hold you accountable. You're going to tell your mentor what your goals are. So when they talk about, mapping those plans out, they hold you accountable to what you say your values are. You told your mentor that your value was that you want to give back to your community, and you haven't showed your mentor, okay, well, I want to give back to my community. Your mentor is going to say, okay, well, how is doing this giving back to your community? How is this holding you accountable to the values that you told me that you have? So when you talk about sexual reproductive health, especially when you talk about young men, I just had a conversation at the end of the Making Proud Choices workshop last night about what it means when a young lady says no. Like something as simple as that. Like the fact that a lot of young men think that, oh, she said no, but her body said yes, so we can go forward. No, your mentor is going to tell you, no, buddy, that's no is no. That's the end of the day. So the end of the story. So when you talk about those risky behaviors, April, your mentor is definitely going to hold you accountable to those things and making sure that you understand that your risky behaviors that you're taking may be going against the values that you said you set to get to your goals. So they all definitely do tie together for sure.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. So for the young folks who are out there who might be watching this, you need to go out and get your mentor after you've watched this video, we hope. And, reach out to some of us. I'm sure some of us would be happy to fill that role for you. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up and finish this, and hopefully you guys will tune back in next week. So I just want to say thank you to all of our panelists for being here. This has been hugely helpful discussion. And for those of you watching, keep checking back on our social media. We're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, Empowerr program, Lowcountry Youth Services, YWCA Greater Charleston, and People Against Rape. So go out there and find us on social media and check back for more information. Next week, we're planning to talk about body positivity and self-esteem. And we're hoping that we'll be able to bring it to you live next week once we get some technical difficulties out of the way so that you can watch and you can ask questions while we're talking, and we can maybe answer some of those questions live for you. In the meantime, if there are discussion points that you guys want to hear more about, you can reach us on our social media, or you can email me at Borkman, which is BORKMAN @MUSC.edu, and we will do our best to incorporate that into our discussions now and in the future. So thanks for being here, everybody. Good job, panelists. I think we did pretty good for our first try. Bye.
Bye.